Welcome back to the Suzanne and Sarah YouTube channel. I'm Sarah Willis, and today we are giving you the ultimate guide to real estate investing for millennials. Topic near and dear to my heart. As of October 2025, I am 39 years old, so I fall in this category, and I am also a real estate investor. So who better to hear it from, right? Most millennials are probably trying to choose between another index fund or maybe some cryptocurrency, but maybe think about purchasing an asset that pays you back while you sleep and, I don't know, maybe appreciates in value over time. This is your guide. So I'm going to walk you through the exact basics, the strategy, the numbers, and the first action steps that you need to take with no fluff in order to get going. Suzanne and I help first-time investors move up from just being home buyers, right? And help them start buying properties that actually pencil, whether that's your primary residence, or if you're in a primary residence with a really great interest rate, maybe you want to keep that and rent it and it cash flows and you can move on to your next home. So maybe you can become an accidental real estate investor. And this is a way to actually take it from being on accident to on purpose. So I'm going to try and break it down for you in some real English and real numbers. And if you like it, please like the video and hit subscribe and you'll get more of this stuff in the future. Okay, so let's start with some real estate basics. Things you need to know. There's some different categories and there are 4 different paths that you might hear about that are pretty common. When people invest in real estate, people typically invest in either residential rentals, so think single family homes and up to 4 doors, so duplexes or fourplexes or triplexes. That's the simplest way to start long-term rentals. But there's other categories because there's things like small commercial or mixed use, and those tend to have more yield, but also more complexity and take more complex loans and higher money down to get into them. Another category is flips or the BRRRR strategy, the buy, rent, rehab, refinance, repeat. These are ways that you can force equity with renovations, and then you can either hold the property or sell it. REITs, REITs, look them up. They are stock-like exposures that are real estate investments in larger portfolios. If you don't really want to own your own doors, you can just own a portion of them. And it can be a really great community and little sandbox to play in if you're just getting started and don't have a lot of time to offer and you just have cash. So some key terms to know that are important for real estate investing are cash flow. This is your rent, right? Your gross rents minus your expenses. And expenses in real estate investing tend to be things like mortgage, taxes, insurance, and any utilities that you pay. If you're truly making it a passive investment, you're also paying a property manager, and then any repairs or capital improvements. That is your cash flow. Your cap rate is your net operating income. So all of your, rent minus expenses plus your purchase price. And in our market in Bend, Oregon, I would say pretty much anything over 5.5 or 6% cap rate is really good here because we're an appreciation market and not a cash flow market. And if you can hit that sweet spot, you're doing well in both categories. Equity, pretty simple term. It really is just what you own outright. It's not what you owe the bank. It really is just a combination of your down payment and your principal pay down on your mortgage over time, plus any appreciation. So a really simple equation for this is to have a spreadsheet, have what you think the estimated value of your home is minus your mortgage, and then whatever's left over is your equity in the property. DSCR, us real estate investors throw around a lot of letters. This just stands for debt service coverage ratio. And it's a specific equation that lenders will use in particular for this type of loan. And really lenders like to see DSCR ratio of greater than 1.2. But in our market, I do know of some lenders that will do DSCR loans at ratios at 1.1 or 1.15, I believe, or above. So this is just your net operating income plus your annual debt payments. You're going to want to set your goal so your strategy isn't random. I mean, the thing about real estate is there are so many shiny objects, and it's really easy to get distracted and try a little bit of everything all at once. And if you know anything about life, is spreading yourself too thin or knowing a little about a lot of things isn't very effective. So just like that, you're going to want to ask yourself a few things before you set your goals, and you're going to want to be very intentional about this, or else you're going to waste a lot of time and money. So real estate investors want to ask themselves, do you want cash today or wealth later? And this is going to affect the type of property you buy and the market in which you buy in. So cash today is things like cash flow. So markets where there's usually lower appreciation, lower purchase prices, and high need for rentals can be higher cash flow markets. And wealth later is usually markets more like Central Oregon, which, if you're working with people who are experienced and looking out for you, you can probably find a decent deal for the short term. And then this is something that you can cash out on in 5, 10, 15 years and make a pretty profit just by maintaining your home and buying and holding. What is your timeline? A lot of people come into real estate investing with really aggressive timelines. Like, I want $150 in 5 years. And like, that's an amazing goal, but it's really aggressive, and you have to have a plan to get there, and you have to be investing in the right sector, real estate, in the right markets in order to achieve that. So when you're asking yourself, again, with timeline, you have to say, how much time do I have? So do you want to do a flip this year? Do you have enough time to devote towards a short-term project? Or are you looking for something like a buy and hold for 5 to 10 years? Again, probably a less time intensive thing. If you have less time to offer, a buy and hold might be a better option for you. What is your risk tolerance? The higher your risk tolerance, probably the better deal you're going to get and the more opportunity there is, but there is also a lot more inputs. And the saying in real estate is true also: higher risk, higher reward potential. But not 100% of these deals work out. Like, there is risk involved. Just find where you are on that risk spectrum, and whether you just need to walk into a turnkey coupon clipper type deal that requires like little, out of pocket expenses to get it ready. It's pretty much a no-brainer in a lot of ways, but the thing is, you're going to be paying more of a premium for something that is a safer investment. Otherwise, you're looking for what we call a value add product in our industry. And that means that you can add value yourself through sweat equity, through improvements, things that you can force appreciation on your property, again, over time, whether that be a short or long-term hold. Here's an example so you can think it through. I want one property that breaks even today and pays itself off while I sleep. And then if you can do that, you can maybe think to yourself, next time, I want 2 times the equity in 18 months. So really specific, getting really specific about your time and quantity of things would lead you to think, oh, hey, maybe I should invest in a BRRRR type property, a property that would lend itself to a BRRRR. And again, this is where working with agents who can help you identify these types of properties based on your goals is helpful. You need good listeners in order to be successful in this industry as well. Another really important thing on your list is getting your money house in order. This is really important. You need to have a budget for a down payment and reserves. Most lenders typically require you to have 3 to 6 months of expenses, meaning like your mortgage payment, your taxes and insurance, in escrow, or just have that in as liquid before you close on the property. So you need to have a decent amount of cash typically upfront in order to do these more conventional type deals. Credit score. Aim for 740 or plus for best rates. And there's lots of different types of loans out there. Some depend on the property and some depend on the person. But no matter what type of loan you're getting, your credit score does always matter. So make sure you're paying down those credit cards, keeping your utilization ideally below 50%, and making all your payments on time. Debt plan. This is something that a good real estate agent will ask you is, what is your debt plan? You're going to want to have lender relationships, and that's something that we can help you with it as well. But you're going to want to know whether you will be seeking or using a conventional loan, a DSCR loan, or even like a hard money loan or fix and flip type loan for a flip property and then planning to refinance it later into some other type of loan. So these are important things to be researching ahead of time, because different properties fit different categories and different people fit different categories in the debt plan piece as well. Picking your market. This is a hard one, believe it or not. So this requires research, and it's a really deeply personal decision. I'm going to try and talk generics as much as possible and make it something that you can follow and outline. But when we are researching markets, generally we want to make sure that the area is growing, right? That there are people moving there. That's a desirable market, that people aren't fleeing and moving away. So indicators of this are things like job growth, population growth. Also, we've seen a lot of people divesting as long-term rental owners, or multifamily owners or landlords, property managers, things like that, in the state of Oregon and Washington, because they're not super landlord friendly states. People tend to flock towards the Midwest when they're investing in lots of doors, because those are more landlord friendly states. There tends to be better cash flow. But maybe you don't want to have to get on a plane to get to your properties. I don't know. The other thing that you're going to want to consider when it comes to picking a market is the rent to price ratio. In a really good market, you'll hear something called the 1% rule floated around, which means essentially your rents equal at least 1% of your purchase price, and that is considered a really good deal. Here in Bend, in Central Oregon, you're usually looking at closer to like the 0.5% rule. Usually rents are typically about 0.5 to 0.75% of the purchase price in this market, and that's average. It just is what it is. Once you pick your general area, then you're going to want to zoom into neighborhoods that match your tenant selection and like who you want to be renting to. This matters for lots of different reasons, but also your property type will attract your tenant type and dictate your rents as well, right? So you'll want to look at things like proximity to places where people work and schools and hospitals, proximity to transportation and parks. While location is always important when it comes to resale and long-term holds, it can be really important when it comes to the short-term aspect of it as well. And rentability. Location is one of the most important things that you can buy in real estate. Finally, it comes to choosing your strategy and then matching it to the financing. Long-term rentals typically beget more conventional style loans or a DSCR loan if the rents are good enough and you have enough money to put as a down payment, which in our market, in order to qualify for a DSCR loan, you're usually looking at like 25% down to get a good DSCR ratio and a good rate as well. The higher amount you put down, the better interest rate you get. Conventional loan for long-term rentals would work if you can do what's called a full doc approach, which means like going through all of your income, and like you yourself would qualify as a borrower for this particular property and not just the property itself. Or we have a lot of people doing house hacking in Central Oregon. So buying a duplex or a single family home with an ADU and living in one side and rent in the other. The benefit to purchasing multifamily, so 2 to 4 doors, is there's actually a loan product out there that allows someone who is living in one of their units to put as little as 5% down. So that's a really cool way to help offset the cost of your mortgage and buy, right? Start investing sooner than maybe you think you could. Midterm rentals are something that is growing in popularity in our market. These are considered furnished professional rentals that are rented for 30 days or more at a time. In our market, this is one workaround to our strict short-term rental or nightly rental rules, that because it's still a way to optimize a home, gives some buyers the opportunity to use their own home as like a vacation space at sometimes when it's not being rented. But with these in particular, you want to make sure that they've got good proximity to hospitals, different corporate hubs, and or just be thinking in the mindset that people who rent these are, yes, either working professionals, traveling professionals, or people who are looking to try before they buy in a market in a specific neighborhood. BRRRRs are fix and flips into a refi into a conventional loan. So with these, you start with hard money or fix and flip loan. And then once the property becomes financeable, or you take it from, vanilla to like rocky road, you are able to then go get a new loan for it, a longer term loan. So either a DSCR loan or a conventional loan, and theoretically cash out of your equity, right? And then be able to rent that property or sell it, and then take the money that you've cashed out from that refi and the equity that you've just created by improving your home and put it into your next investment. House hacking, we already touched on this a little bit. And this is really just when you live in one unit or room and then rent the rest. It's really, honestly, one of the best methods for learning investing, becoming a landlord, what it means to upkeep a house, deal with other people, and to really just get your feet wet. One quick pro tip is we always want there to be multiple exit strategies if possible, or at least more than one. So always underwrite a deal as if your primary strategy isn't going to work out, and know that there's a secondary strategy that could be your fallback if possible. You're going to want to do the back of the napkin math. So say you're going to spend $500,000 on a small duplex. Rents are going to be anywhere between $1,800 and whatever, $1,700 a month. So you're at $3,500 a month for a $500,000 duplex. Your expenses roughly with taxes and insurance, property management, maintenance, utilities are about $1,200 a month. So your principal, your payment on your mortgage and interest with 20% down at today's rate is probably about $2,600 a month, which means when you add your mortgage payment and your expenses, you're at about $3,800 a month, and you are then cash flowing $300 a month. Now, in our market in Bend, like that's pretty good. Like if you're cash flowing at all, that's great. For some people, it might be too tight unless prices drop or rents drop, because it could mean that some months that you are not cash flowing at all. You're going to want to build your team early. All this takes a village. Like you cannot do this alone. Obviously, you're going to need a good lender. That's where you always want to start. Your real estate agent, your investor-friendly real estate agent who speaks the language and knows what to look for. Possibly a property manager. We can talk about that in person. And a handyman. So, I mean, really, agents, we help underwrite deals and obviously like help figure out what's best for you in terms of negotiating price or credits, rate buy downs, things like that. Lenders, you're going to want them to have some investment history and work with a company that has portfolio products like your DSCR loans and can make exceptions when things get funky. Property managers, they are a really great thing to work towards. They, in our market still at this point, tend to kill cash flow in deals, but you're definitely going to want to know one, have a good one on your team, and even potentially hire them piece of meal for sure, because some of the best advice that I've ever heard about being a landlord in our market here in Oregon is assume that everybody has an attorney and that everybody knows all of the Oregon tenant landlord laws, because essentially like that's what they're provided with is help and all the information. And you want to make sure that you're doing everything on the up and up. Of course, you want a good handy person for when you have things go wrong. And then also you want to make sure that you are properly insured and then have a good CPA. We have recommendations for all these things. If you need any, please reach out. We're happy to share our network that we spent a long time building for our clients and ourselves. And it really does save you a lot of time and money when you know the right people to talk to. Next is making your first offer. Like it's a really big deal. This move is one of the hardest for new investors, is like actually taking the first steps, but making offers is free. You have lots of contingencies and protections, but you want to make an offer only after you've run the numbers, right? You want to make sure that you are as clear as possible on what this property can do for you on paper, because that disconnects it from the emotional piece. So I recommend running numbers three ways. So like base, just like what we think is probably reality. Then you run the optimistic numbers, like if something were totally optimized and it was a really great year. And then you run the conservative numbers, like if it's a really bad year or things go wrong. What does that look like? And ask yourself if this fits your risk profile after you've done that. So as part of your offer, of course, we build in all kinds of inspection windows and financing contingencies that match your loan. Like, it's our job to protect you and your earnest money. That's our job. You don't have to worry about it. And then if rates are really killing the deal for you, which they are in a lot of cases right now, really the best strategy is to be asking for rate buydowns instead of negotiating on price. That gives you a lot more leverage and often honestly saves you hundreds of dollars more a month than just getting a price reduction on a property. When you finally have a property, you're going to want to manage your asset. Like, this is where you have an opportunity to win. This is where you systemize things. You know that how to screen for good tenants. You know what your leases look like. You know how to keep track of your deposits. You have it on your calendar when to send lease terminations or renewals and rent raises. You have to make sure that it's all plug and play. You're also obviously going to want to track your monthly P&Ls and adjust rents with the market, and then reinvest in your property. Like, one of the best things you can do for yourself is spend money on your real estate that have good return on investment. So small upgrades with big rent impact are things like lighting and hardware, laundry, yard, storage in our market in particular, and garages, parking. Refi moments. Watch the market. When rates or equity move, run the math. And a lot of times you can win just by taking a couple days to have a conversation with a lender and go through the process of a refi. Finally, I know I feel like I've been saying that a lot. You just want to make sure you review and rinse and repeat. So, did your net operating income grow? Look at this stuff every quarter, every year. Are there creeping expenses that you need to tame? Is there a chance to add value to this property? Things like we already talked about: storage, parking, laundry. Can you even add another unit on the property? And then start thinking about what's the next buy box that you have based on what you just learned. Like, what I do know is that not all things stay the same. Things shift as you learn, as you grow, as you change, as your resources shift in life and your phase of life shifts. So does your buy box. So go with the flow. When clients work with us, we have access to short-term rental data in terms of comps. We run really comprehensive deal analysis for our clients. We do video tours, and we really just listen and give you great feedback. So if you are looking to purchase in the Central Oregon market, you're a millennial, you're anything else, you were born at any other time, we're really just looking for people to work with us who resonate with what we're saying, resonate with our mission, and want to have a little fun doing it. So if you love Central Oregon and you either want to buy a primary residence here that works for you, or you want to get into an investment property here of some kind, we would love to be the resource for you. Give us a call, 503-739-5006. We'll see you on the next video.